everyone, and welcome back to another Storytime video. And today I am going to update my top 25 games of all time list for technically the last time. Now, next year when I update this list again, it will be a top 50 list because now I have 67 total games on my list. In prior years, I've had in the 50s, if not lower than that. I mean, the first year I did this back in 2021, I only had 30 total games in my list. So, but without further ado, let me get into the top 25 list for this year. At number 25, I have Doom 2016. Now, I'm going to touch on this later, but Doom: The Dark Ages is coming out next year, and it looks phenomenal. I am so excited for that game, but I'll touch on that later on. Doom 2016 was a nice return to form for Doom after Doom 3 had come out 12 years earlier, back in 2004. And Doom 2016 was more like the classic games than Doom 3 ever was. And that basically revitalized the Doom franchise as we know it today, because it was a dead franchise up until Doom 2016, basically. Nobody had really talked about it. Nobody had really, you know, it wasn't talked about a lot in the mainstream, and so nobody really cared about it as much as other games series that were coming out, because they hadn't come out with anything in a while. Okay, moving on. We have at number 24, we have Borderlands 3. Now, Borderlands 3 is great. I definitely like Borderlands 3. The villains were not that great. The villains I get were supposed to be basically your clout chasers, basically mocking some of those influencers from back then that you primarily had that I've seen have slowly gone away. Maybe I'm not paying attention, maybe they actually have, but for relic of its time, and I say that like it's an old game. No, it's only 5 years old, but the villains are certainly aggravating, and I get that they're meant to be aggravating, but oh my god, I can't stand the villains. I cannot stand the villains. Like, look, I get that they have a backstory and all that, and that gets explained and whatnot towards the end of the game, but and a villain doesn't have to be, if you want to borrow another Borderlands villain, a villain doesn't have to be Handsome Jack level in order for me to like them. But just don't make the villains, Troy and Tyreen, irritating. I mean, it's like Mickey and Lou from Far Cry New Dawn. Those villains were irritating as hell. They were just awful. But yeah, but Borderlands 3 allows you to explore other planets, and that's what I really liked about the game. And so I really enjoyed it because you got new characters, you got new environments, and you just got a lot more variety. And one thing I was really excited about with Borderlands 3 was the ability to travel to other planets instead of just being on Pandora. But yeah, so moving on. Number 23, a new entry to the list. Wolfenstein The New Order. Now, Wolfenstein The New Order, like Doom 2016, was a was basically a reboot for the Wolfenstein franchise. And the history of if the people that YouTube doesn't like for you to say, even in a historical video, those people, the alternate history of like Sputnik actually being on the moon and doing all that stuff, that well, I don't remember if Sputnik was on the moon in that game, but or if the Soviets did that, but still, I mean, well, I guess they wouldn't have because Germany would have crushed it. But anyway, so just the alternate history and doing all that, reading about that was fun, and it was a fun reboot. And it comes in at number 23. So at number 22 is Far Cry 4. Far Cry 4 feels like Far Cry 3, which isn't good on the surface, but I think that Pagan Min is still a great villain. Maybe not as he's Pagan Min is not as good of a villain as Voss, but uh Pagan Min is featured more in Far Cry 4, at least that I remember, than Voss is in Far Cry 3. I mean, for God's sake, Voss is not the only villain in Far Cry 3. Yes, Voss is not the only villain in Far Cry 3. There are other villains like Hoyt. Some people forget that. He's not even the main villain. But anyway, so rant over there, but I prefer the setting of Far Cry 4 over the Rook Islands, and I really like the Himalayan mountains, and there's a couple of the tailing missions and stuff that's irritating, but overall I love the missions in Far Cry 4 a whole lot. I mean, there's these trial parts of it that just are awesome. Basically, your drug sequence. The drug sequences in the Far Cry games are very fun, and so it ranks out at number 22. And then number 21 is the game in which you're watching gameplay of Postal 2. Now, I will say this statement because I have not played the first Postal game, at least not yet. Postal 2 is the most offensive video game that I have ever played. It is certainly not for kids. And I would not like no, it's definitely not for kids. It it makes fun of everything and everybody, and whenever I told my mom about Postal 2, she was like, "Why would you even play a game like that?" And she understands why you would play a lot of games, but it's like it's just fun. It's just very very fun. And number 20 is Halo Combat Evolved. Now, Halo CE is a really good game. It's not quite as good as the other games in the list, and not as good as the other Halo games that I have further up the list, of course. Combat Evolved's sandbox isn't the best. I mean, like I mentioned in my Combat Evolved series that I'm playing right now, the Halo CE tank is awful. It is awful. And the plasma pistol and the magnum, or your pistol, your other pistol that you have, are, and your sniper rifle are the best weapons that I can think of. So your assault rifle is not that good. The needler is not that good from my experience. The plasma rifle, eh. And then the thing that I've mentioned that drags it down a little bit in terms of my rankings is the fact that the library exists. Now, you can make whatever comment you want about, the fact that I might not be good enough for the library, but are you forgetting about the freaking rocket launcher flood that spawned in there? Are you forgetting about that, my friend? Because if you are, then I will definitely excuse that. But if not, then I think you need to replay it and realize that the rocket launcher flood is just a menace to have to go up against. It's just a complete menace to go up against. But anyway, so moving on. At number 19, we've got Bioshock. Now, the original Bioshock is, oh, so very awesome. I've been thinking about replaying it recently because Rapture as a city, as an underwater city, is just so, so cool. Ken Levine and his team did such an amazing job. And the twist about 3/4 into the game, I'm not gonna ruin and say what the twist is, but the first time that I played the game, I did not see the twist coming. I absolutely did not see the twist coming. And it was amazing. And at number 18, we have Far Cry 5. I would say the most recent Far Cry game that I've completed, but New Dawn holds that title. I'm playing through 6 right now, by the way, so next year I might have my thoughts on that, assuming it makes the top 50 whenever I make that video. But anyway, so Far Cry 5 is about Joseph Seed, John Seed, and Faith Seed, and let's see, there's John Seed, Faith Seed, Joseph, John, and then there's that one with the sniper rifle. Oh, God, I don't remember his name. I don't remember his name, and it's gonna bug me. See, there's Joseph, and then John, and Faith. And Jacob. 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 Oh, Jacob was a major antagonist in Far Cry 6 DLC, Joseph Collapse. I'm gonna buy that DLC soon for that game and play it because I want to play as the villain so badly. But anyway, so Jacob, John, and Faith were great side villains, and exploring Montana, I prefer the Himalayan mountains ever so slightly in Far Cry 4 to Montana. It kind of goes back and forth to which one I prefer more, as a matter of fact. But more days I prefer the Himalayan mountains. So I say that I prefer the Himalayan mountains ever so slightly to Montana, but the gameplay is much better in Far Cry 5 than it is Far Cry 4. Because Far Cry 3 and 4 um, feel exactly the same, and the gameplay in 3 isn't the best. It's not terrible, but it's not good, and 4 is kind of... 4 is a bit better than 3, but in 5, they definitely changed some stuff and made it better. And then number 17, we have Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. Now, Blood Dragon is basically a love letter to the 80s, where it's basically a big parody of those 80s action movies. I mean, for God's sake, they have a training montage toward the end of the game, for Christ's sake. I mean, I said that once, but I mean, it kind of deserves to be said a second time. I mean, they do. And you know, they play Rocky when you finish the game. During that finishing section, and when you complete the game, Rocky is playing. So, I mean, it's just complete 80s, just and it's amazing. Gameplay is great. Basically, they took everything great about Far Cry 3 and put it into Blood Dragon, and did not grab anything bad about 3. I mean, the biggest gripe that I have with Blood Dragon is that even on hard difficulty, it seems a little too easy, and that well, my main gripe is that the final villain is dealt with in a cutscene. So you don't actually have this final battle with the villain, which I'm kind of fine with. I mean, I would rather a good game like that than a bad game and have a final battle with the main villain, personally. But anyway, uh, number 16 is another game that I started playing recently for the channel, and that is the original Half-Life. I feel like Half-Life doesn't get the credit that it deserves, partly because I think that it gets overshadowed by Half-Life 2, which, spoiler alert, will be coming up later in the video. So yes, Half-Life 2 will be coming up later in later in the video. But yeah, Half-Life gets overshadowed, but you know, I think that Half-Life is a better game than what a lot of people give it credit for. Half-Life for 1998 was phenomenal, and it is good gameplay and a game that I revisit fairly often, actually. I think I have completed Half-Life the same amount of times as I have Half-Life 2. I mean, yeah, I actually keep a tally on how many times I beat a particular game, and Half-Life and Half-Life 2 I've both beaten 3 times to this point. So, I've beaten both of them the same amount. Um, but moving on, At number 15, I have the best indie game of all time, and a game that kind of revitalized the indie uh the indie genre, and spawned a lot, or gave smaller people a lot more confidence to make games. And that is Hotline Miami 1, anyway. Hotline Miami 2, don't really care for. But Hotline Miami 1 was amazing. You have 15 chapters that are just absolutely awesome, with an absolutely incredible soundtrack that is just, oh, and then you have the gameplay that's just simply phenomenal. It is top down, looks 8-bit, but please, if you haven't given Hotline Miami a chance, please give it a chance, because I'm sure that you'll absolutely love it like I do. I mean, I played it back on the channel way back in 2017 and 18. It's been so long since I played it for this channel, but I enjoyed every second of it. And now, number 14, I have Transformers Devastation. The best Transformers game out there. Devastation has the G1 art style. And sure, the plot that Megatron has in terms of cyberforming the city feels very cliche, but at least it's not stupid. The plot is a bit bare bones, and so other than it being short and the pacing being a bit off, gameplay and that soundtrack, again, that soundtrack is just phenomenal. All right, number 13, we have Half-Life 2. So, we've gotten to it where Half-Life 2 is up. And personally, I prefer the Marines that you fight in the original Half-Life over the Combine in Half-Life 2, because the Marine AI is smarter in the original Half-Life than it is in Half-Life 2. But the gameplay and the sandbox is better in 2 than it is in Half-Life 1. But I like them pretty much the same. I mean, there's certain aspects I like 1 about more, and certain aspects I like more about 2. But I mean, like this list indicates, if you had to sit me down and pick which one I like best or better between Half-Life 1 and 2, give me Half-Life 2. And so, we've made it a little more than halfway through, and I still have an hour of gameplay. So good, I get to talk for a little bit at the end here. And at number 12, we have Bully. Now, Bully is certainly an interesting game. So, I would describe Bully to somebody that doesn't know about it as a teenage Grand Theft Auto. And what I mean by that is that you are a student, Jimmy Hopkins, at Bulworth Academy, and you are trying to reunite these different cliques. You've got the preppies, the jocks, the nerds. So you've got the preppies, the jocks, the nerds, and I don't remember the other group off the top of my head, but you're supposed to reunite these cliques and basically take over the school after your character basically gets betrayed by your friend, at least what you thought was your friend, and there's no guns, and but there's still missions, and it's made by Rockstar, the same people that made Grand Theft Auto, and so that's why I describe it as a teenage Grand Theft Auto. And so, number 11, I have Resident Evil 4, the original, the 2005 version. And I say that the 2005 version because somebody will comment and go, "Oh, do you mean the version that came out in 2023?" No, I don't. Because I haven't played the remake and I don't want to play the remake. I want to invest my money into games that I haven't completed before, not buy the same game twice. Not buy the same game twice. And not complete the same game twice. I mean, I've already done that unknowingly with Black Mesa. Back before I knew that that was a remake for Half-Life 1. Because it wasn't even made by Valve. Like Half-Life was. I think it was Crowbar Entertainment that made, or Crowbar Collective, or whatever. Crowbar something or other made Black Mesa, I think. But anyway, so Resident Evil 4 is awesome. Going to that Spanish speaking country, I want to say it's Spain. But going to that country and rescuing Ashley, but all the little set pieces in there, it's just awesome. Like Krauser, when he's talking to Ada, flicking his knife up, basically indicating, hey, this guy's really good with his knife, before Leon and Krauser get into that knife fight. There's a lot of boss fights in that game that are awesome. And, people clown Ashley all that they want, but really, after the first playthrough, you kind of start to learn how Ashley is and how to manage her, such that on a second playthrough, you can definitely, she won't be a hindrance to you at that point, because you've kind of learned how to manage all that. And so she's not a hindrance anymore, at least not to me when I replay the game. But anyway, so now we get to the top 10. Now we get to the top 10. And at number 10, I have Halo 2. Now, Halo 2 has the best story out of any Halo game that I've ever played. And I haven't played Infinite or 5. But from what I understand, 5 is the worst. And Infinite's kind of mediocre, but I haven't played them before, so I don't know. But from my understanding, the story in 2 is much better than Infinite's story and the story in 5. And Halo 2 is so good. Being able to play as the Arbiter is so cool. Like, you get to fight alongside the Covenant and all that against the Flood, and playing with the Covenant, that's cool. That is cool. And people criticize Halo 2 for the fact that you play as the Arbiter. And I would ask those people, why? Why? Is it because you're not playing as Master Chief for half the game? Sorry, my throat's getting awfully dry. But is it because you're not playing as Master Chief for half the game? If so, then you must hate Reach. You must hate ODST. Oh, you must think that Halo 4 is better than Halo Reach and Halo ODST. I mean, the fact that you play as the Arbiter makes the story in Halo 2 so much better. So I don't mind playing as the Arbiter because that means that the story is so much better. And, playing as the Arbiter doesn't feel that much different than playing as the Chief because you play as the Chief in 2. Yes, you do. Believe it or not, you do. And Chief and the Arbiter have the same sandbox and same weapons because of that. They might not start out the level or the level with the same weapons. The Arbiter might start out with an energy sword when Chief might start out with an assault rifle and a sniper rifle. But I mean, it's just so awesome. Like, I don't get how there's some people that go, oh, I don't like Halo 2 because you play as the Arbiter. I don't get that. The only argument that I can see for them is that, like I said, you don't play as the Chief. But, like I said, those people must hate Reach and they must hate ODST because you don't play as the Chief in those games. But I digress. I don't want to get worked up. I don't want to get worked up. But anyway, so number 9 is my favorite Far Cry game. Not Far Cry 3. Sorry to disappoint you if you're new to this or new to watching me, but it is Far Cry 2. Far Cry 2 is the most gritty game that I've ever played. Far Cry 2, whenever you complete it, it just feels so rewarding because it feels like there's so many obstacles in your way and it feels difficult. Like, not like Halo 2 level difficult or Halo 2 on Legendary type of difficult. Circle back around to that, but Far Cry 2 is so it takes itself super seriously. Like, refer to my comments about how I mentioned a few minutes ago about how Blood Dragon is basically a parody of 80s action movies and whatnot. Well, if you had a scale of parody and takes itself realistically in terms of the game parodies itself or the game takes itself super seriously, Far Cry 3 is on the is far over on the scale of parody, and Far Cry 2 is on the complete opposite end of that spectrum in the serious category. And I love those two extremes. I mean, Blood Dragon and 2 are my favorite Far Cry games if you've been paying attention. Now, at least 3, 4, and 5. I don't remember too much about 1, but 3, 4, and 5 basically want to be video games, but they also want to be action movies to a certain extent. And it works, but it just doesn't work as well. And what kind of holds Far Cry 2 back from being higher on the list is that whenever you clear out an enemy encampment, you can go a quarter of a mile or half a mile down the road, and those enemies at that guard outpost or that enemy encampment, even though you just cleared it out, you got to clear it out again. So you might have cleared it out on your way to your objective, to get malaria pills or whatever, and did that 10 minutes later, and then you have to go right back and clear that enemy guard post again, or that enemy encampment again. And that gets a little irritating. And then it seems like the mission structure is either go kill this person or blow this thing up or get the malaria pills. So I had said previously in my top 25 list that sorry, and that there was basically two mission structures. I forgot about getting malaria pills because I did two of those missions early on in the game, the first time I played it, and I didn't get more pills. And I did that the second time because I'm like, well, I can knock out two of those missions, two of the underground missions right away, and not have to worry about pills for the rest of the game. And I went, cool, I'm gonna do that. And I'm doing that a third time. So I kind of forget about those underground missions where you just deliver some passports and they give you some malaria pills. But for the most part, yes. It is go kill this person or blow this thing up. And that gets a little boring after a while. Like, I like mission variety. So those two things, the respawning enemies, a little too much. And then the missions only being two, maybe three if you want to make that argument, type of missions. But I just need a little more mission variety within my game. But overall, in terms of the sandbox and the gameplay and the story and the twist that it takes, Far Cry 2 has one of the best stories and some amazing gameplay. So yeah, Far Cry 2 is one of the best stories that I've experienced in gaming. Because if you really take a step back and kind of dissect it, because it's hard to without taking a 20-foot view, because the dialogue, it's just monotone. It's just monotone. They speak a million miles an hour, except for the cab driver at the very beginning. And so it's hard to kind of in the moment, but if you take a step back and you kind of think about the story and you kind of read about the story, then you, at least I, can really appreciate the story for what it is. A darn good story. Moving on, number 8, I have Fallout New Vegas, the best Fallout game that I have ever played. Now, Fallout New Vegas, in my opinion, is at least the most replayable game with a plot. Of course, there are replayable games like Team Fortress 2 or Garry's Mod for that matter, especially Garry's Mod. But there are games like Garry's Mod out there where they're totally replayable, where you've got sandbox, prop hunt, hide and seek, role play, you know, choose your pick. But it doesn't have a plot. You see, Fallout New Vegas does have a plot, and it has 4 endings in addition to how you get to those endings. Because how you get to those endings, all right, look, I had played the game for 150 or so hours, well, a little over 150 hours, and I have completed the game 3 times, and granted, I still have an ending to go. That being the Yes Man ending, I believe. It's either Yes Man or Mr. House. One of those two. I don't quite remember. I need to look at my achievements. Anyway, so granted, I still have an ending to go. But there's a lot of stuff from when the paths, from when the paths branch off to Caesar's Legion, the NCR, Yes Man, and Mr. House. There's a lot of like if you chose Caesar's Legion, okay, you don't experience everything that there is to offer in one playthrough of Caesar's Legion. There's more to explore and stuff that I didn't do when it came to Caesar's Legion. I mean, you might go to Vault 22, for instance, for Caesar's brain stuff, which I did when I played his game. And then I went back there for another ending that I did for something completely different. So, I mean, there's a lot of variety, and that's not even including the 4 DLCs. That doesn't even include the 4 DLCs that they have, which I don't rank these games based off of DLC, by the way. So, because it's not fair, because not every game has DLC for you to play. So, I don't look at it based off of the DLCs, by the way. I just look at it based on the main campaign. But the main campaign is just so gosh darn replayable. It's so awesome. In addition to the fact that the story is amazing. You are a courier that gets shot in the head while trying to deliver a platinum chip. And you, my friend, get to decide how Vegas is shaped in the future. I think that is very enticing to people. At least it should be. It's very enticing to me anyway. And that's just the main campaign. That's not even including the DLCs, which are freaking awesome. Which I've been itching to play Lonesome Road recently, by the way. After I completed Old World Blues last year. But anyway, moving on, at number 7, I have a brand new game to add to the list. It is Yakuza Kiwami. Now, I guess you could call this a sequel to Yakuza 0. Even though Yakuza 0 came out long after Kiwami did, or technically no. Well, Kiwami was the remake to Yakuza. Now, Yakuza 0 came out after Yakuza did, but Yakuza Kiwami came out after Yakuza 0 did. But Kiwami is a remake, so make of that what you will. But regardless, Kiwami is great. You get to see, especially if you played 0 before Kiwami, like I did, you get to see in Kiwami the progression of Kiryu as a character and Kamurocho as a city and Majima as a character, and how he just pesters the absolute crap out of Majima, or no, Kiryu. And I really like Yakuza Kiwami, as you can imagine. Otherwise, I wouldn't have it so high on my list. And now, moving on, number 6, I have Halo 3. The best Halo game. And really, you can make an argument for any of the Bungie games, in my opinion. Especially Halo 3, Halo 2, and Halo Combat Evolved as the best Halo game. And I won't really argue with you too much. I mean, of course I have my opinion, but as long as I think the opinion is reasonable, like you thinking that 2 or Combat Evolved is the best Halo, I'm not really going to argue with you. I'm just going to go, well, this is what I think, and you have a different opinion, but it's fine. I mean, it's reasonable. I don't mind in the slightest. Like, I'm not gonna argue with you, but Halo 3 has the best sandbox. It has the best gameplay. It, of course, doesn't have as good a story as Halo 2, but personally, and this will come up later, but I'd rather a game have really good gameplay over a really good story. Personally, I mean, that's just so. Looking at it that way, of course, I think Halo 3 is better than Halo 2. I mean, Halo 3 brought back dual wielding that was introduced in 2. I mean, sure, some of the dialogue, the dialogue in 3 isn't as good as 2, and quite frankly, some of the dialogue in 3 is either cheesy or terrible. It's like some Marine is asking Miranda Keyes, or telling Miranda Keyes that the squad leaders are requesting a rally point and asking her where they should go. And Miranda Keyes basically cocks back a pistol and she goes, "To war." It's like, okay, where should they go, Miranda? Where should they go? You're supposed to be the leader here. You're supposed to lead them. So that's an example of cheesy dialogue in Halo 3. But anyway, moving on to the top 5, and personally, if you wanted to say that either one of these top 5 games are the best game of all time, even though I disagree with, of course, 2 through 5, I would not argue with you whatsoever in the slightest. I would not argue with you in the slightest, and I would understand why you would think either one of these 5 games are the best game of all time. And to a certain extent, I might agree with you. Not fully, except if you think number 1's the best. But anyway, so number 5, I have Batman Arkham Asylum. Now, I love going around the island. The atmosphere of the island is just awesome, and it was a great start for the Arkham series. The Joker boss fight at the end, I'm not going to reveal too much here, but the Joker boss fight at the end left a lot to be desired. I just was like, what? Why? It just didn't seem in character for him. It just seemed weird. It just left a lot to be desired. I mean, I kind of get it, but that's just not Joker's personality. That's not what Joker does. But anyway, so Arkham Asylum did the villains like Scarecrow and Croc, and for the most part Joker, except for the very end, very well. And I guess my biggest complaint would be that very end boss fight with Joker being so bizarre and weird. And the thing is uh the game almost overstays its welcome. Like, if the game was a little longer, it would be too long. So the game is almost too long. The game is perfect at its current length. I would almost argue that the game should be a tiny bit shorter, which is weird to say. It is rather ironic for you to complain that a game that you can beat in 10 or 15 hours is a little too long, is almost too long, but here we are. But I still really enjoy the game, and you could consider it the best game of all time, and I wouldn't argue with you too much. Now, number 4, I have Yakuza 0. Yakuza 0 is Yakuza Kiwami, but better, because you can play as Majima before he goes crazy, and you see Majima with his cabaret club, and because of the fact that you have your dueling perspectives, like in Halo 2, that allows the story to be so much better because you have Majima's side and you have Kiryu's side, and it's just amazing. One day I need to sit down and rank my favorite game stories of all time, but it'd be very hard between Yakuza 0, Halo 2, Far Cry 2, and a game that I'm about to get to here in just a minute. But, so, it's just amazing. And there's just so many mini games. Like you talk about Fallout New Vegas being replayable. Yakuza 0 is not necessarily replayable, but there's so much to do to where you could spend well over 100 hours. Like, my second playthrough was like 60 hours because I did the whole Cabaret Club, rebuilding Club Sunshine with Majima, and that took a long time. And I didn't even do Kiryu's real estate business or a lot of the like, I didn't do the circuit racing, I didn't really do the karaoke. I just did some of the side content or some of the side stuff. Yeah, some of the side stories, as well as, of course, the main stories and the Cabaret Club, and that was 60 hours. Imagine if you did everything. You could spend 150 hours doing everything and not complete the game. All right, number 3, I have a new addition to the list this year, and that is Batman Arkham City. There has been a time or two on this channel where I have said that where I have wanted a game company to make their sequel like 10% better than the original, at least 10% better than the original, depending on how good the original is. And that statement holds true to Batman Arkham Asylum and Batman Arkham City. This is a perfect example because Batman Arkham City is like Asylum, but like 10% better. They're basically the same length of game, but the fact that you can play as Catwoman and the fact that they still did the villains well, Joker being sick throughout Arkham City as a result of the effects from Arkham Asylum is a very cool thing to experience in terms of gameplay if you played Asylum before like I did. And so, but Arkham City did Mr. Freeze so well. And I really enjoyed it. And the Penguin too. The Penguin wasn't in Asylum, so they had different villains, but they were still done well. Like Arkham City didn't have Scarecrow or Killer Croc, but they still did well with other Batman villains. And so I have no real complaints. And the number 2 game of all time is The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. This game has again one of the best stories that I've ever played. So this game, Yakuza 0, Far Cry 2, and Halo 2, out of those four, and Morrowind 2, or Morrowind as well, those four games mm, quite possibly might be the best four stories that I've gotten to experience in a video game. But anyway, Morrowind starts you off as this unknown, uh, unproven person where people don't just call you the champion and whatnot. You have to go out and you have to prove it. You have to get better because your skills and your skill level in a certain skill determines how well or how good you are at it. So if you have an axe skill of 50, a few levels in, say you chose like a Nord or something, and you chose uh axe as like a primary skill, and your axe skill is 50, it's going to be a lot better, or you're going to be a lot better with that axe than if your axe skill was, say, a 10 or a 15. And you improve your skills by using your skills. And it's not 100% hit chance either. So if your axe skill is a 10, you might hit 1 out of 10 times. But if your axe skill is 50%, you'll probably hit half the time, and you might end up doing more damage at 50 skill than if you were 10 skill. And the island of Morrowind itself is just great. I love it. So, but anyway, so now we get to the best game of all time, Doom Eternal. Doom Eternal still holds the crown, of course, for the best game of all time. Doom Eternal has the best gameplay that I have ever played. The story has a lot to be desired, but if you remember where I said that I would prefer a game to have a great great gameplay over a great story. Personally, if I preferred a great story over great gameplay, Morrowind might be my favorite game of all time. Like, it's neck and neck there. But I prefer gameplay over story, and thus Doom Eternal takes my top spot. Doom Eternal is so good. And by the way, people hate the Super Gorness level. I don't know why. I don't know why. I I mean, I guess it's because it's long and it's broken up into several parts, basically. Not like Necroval Part 1 and 2, but still. I mean, it's broken up into two distinct sections. And I don't know. I don't know, but the Super Gorness level is like my favorite. And by the way, for the record, Doom Eternal is the game that I have played the most amount of times out of any other game, kind of by far. Uh, like, I have played through Doom Eternal 8 times, and the next closest game I played through like 5 or 6 times. I have played various games 5 or 6 times before, but I played Doom Eternal 8 times. And some of those games that I played 5 or 6 times, I played for the first time a lot earlier than I did play Doom Eternal. Because some of these games, I started playing before I even touched Doom Eternal, much less before it even came out. But anyway, and that brings me to what I want to say before I end off the video. So, so, um, of course, like I said a lot earlier in the video, Doom the Dark Ages, a prequel sequel to Doom Eternal, is coming out next year. Now, of course, well, I am really excited for it. I am so excited that I'm going to pre-order it if I can, and I'm going to take off work depending on timing and whatever else I got going on. I'm going to take off work and use some vacation days just to complete the game when it comes out, if I can. Now, I haven't been so excited for a game coming out that I've wanted to pre-order it or take time off of school or work in order to play it, just solely to play it. But Doom the Dark Ages is certainly that game that I want to play. And might I just say that I hope that next year for gaming is very exciting, or that it's very good. It has the potential to be very exciting because we are getting a new Far Cry game, a new Grand Theft Auto game, a new Borderlands game, and Doom the Dark Ages, like I mentioned. Oh, yeah, and we're also getting a new Transformers game next year. I mean, it's not going to be the same people that made, I was going to say Dark of the Moon, but War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron, and not the same people that made Transformers Devastation. But regardless, we're getting all those, and then so we might get even more that I don't know about at this current moment. And we're getting a new Elder Scrolls in 2026. Now, I don't have that much faith in Bethesda, but they might be able to put out another good Elder Scrolls game, but that'd be in 2026. But yeah, so next year for the top 50 games of all time list, it might look radically different than what it did this year. And it'll probably take me 2 freaking hours to get through. But anyway, that will do it for me today. And see us, guys. I do believe that will do it for this storytime video and tonight's storytime video. I will see you all later. Goodbye, guys. Thank you all for watching. And